The British have long gone. The splendor and sandstone symbols of an empire now represent a free nation, India. Delhi is not India. That's almost the first thing a visitor hears. And it's true. 3/4 of the overwhelming majority of India's nearly 1 billion people still live in villages and not big cities, just as they always have. Her farmers still feed 1/6 of the world's population, who live in a country 1/3 the size of the United States. A population which speaks more than a dozen languages and 1,000 dialects, and which supports more than 20 political parties in the world's largest and one of its youngest democracies. Though no single place can be said to represent all of India, New Delhi, her capital, remains the seat of centralized power. Its busy streets bear witness to much of what has happened in the country since her independence. The impact of a spectacularly growing middle class can be seen here, right alongside the frightening effects of a relentless population. Two Indias live side by side, in a stark contrast that alternately maddens and delights. Emissaries from a more authentic India arrive in New Delhi each morning from their homes. They converge at Central Secretariat, the seat of administration, to attend to the business of the nation. The daily journey takes many past the grounds of the circular sandstone Parliament building, where a vast throng had gathered to hear Jawaharlal Nehru, Free India's first Prime Minister, proclaim independence before midnight on August 14, 1947. The British had left behind canals, roads, railways, and a civil service, and precious little else. India could not feed itself and was virtually without industry. Its people were overwhelmingly illiterate, and its society plagued by social and economic disparities. At the moment of her birth, the country was divided into two. Even as 1/6 of the population of the world was being liberated from colonial rule at the stroke of the midnight hour, the nation and her people were being torn apart. The greatest migration in the history of the subcontinent was about to begin. More than 15 million people were uprooted. Displaced Muslims heading towards Pakistan, past long, shuffling columns of homeless Hindus and Sikhs streaming into India. At the time of her birth, skeptics foretold of a chaotic and turbulent India that would emerge. But they were proved wrong. India not only survived, but also grew as a democracy, making a place for herself in the modern world. A nation that was always haunted by the spectre of famine has today become entirely self-sufficient in the production of food grains and exports a surplus as well. A nation which was without any major industrial infrastructure at the time of her birth, today can boast of industries which sustain the seventh largest economy of the world. A nation where a healthcare system to cover a population of more than 900 million people no longer seems a distant dream. A nation where people, irrespective of caste and economic status, have found a voice. A nation that has grown to represent the collective aspirations of developing countries, redefining priorities in keeping with the changing times. While today, economic diplomacy has been a key component of India's foreign policy, she continues to preserve with conviction and consistency the principles that were enunciated by the founding fathers of the Republic, both in the development of bilateral relations and in international fora. India's journey has been a long and arduous one. Although India's industrial growth has been slower than some of her Asian neighbours, it has accelerated dramatically since the mid-1980s, as Nehru's successors began to edge away from socialism towards foreign investment and a freer market. Success stories abound, and a new, powerful India is emerging to tackle the challenges of the new millennium. India's population now grows roughly 2% a year, less than half the pace at which it was growing before the government instituted the first family planning program in 1951. But with more than 18 million new mouths to feed each year, a figure more than half the population of Canada added every 12 months to a country less than one-third Canada's size, India is overwhelmed by her sheer numbers. Even in the early days, the older parts of most cities were crowded. It was already becoming difficult then for an automobile to navigate through the throngs of what were some of the richest streets in the world. A brief journey through a bewildering series of inner lanes and narrow streets presents an image that transports you to another world. A world where nothing seems to have changed, or at least it seems nothing has. Looking beyond these streets, a sea of change can be seen sweeping across these cities. Though some of them have changed their names, yet the soul remains the same. Bombay is one such city. Today it is called Mumbai, home to the largest stock exchange. In the rush hour crush, commuters at Mumbai's Churchgate station join a force buffeted by economic winds that shifted in 1991, when India introduced reforms intended to reduce the federal deficit, cut inflation, and attract foreign investment. By liberalizing the economy, the government eased away from 4 decades of state planning to embrace a free market approach. Reforms that have led to an annual growth rate of 6%, and bolstered the expectations of foreign investors, who liked what they saw: a secular state, a free press, and an independent judiciary, and one of the largest middle classes in the world. Today, India ranks amongst the 10 largest emerging markets in the world. The Indian middle class, a minuscule segment of the population in 1947, is now as large by one estimate as the total population of the United States, nearly 250 million strong. Determined to seize their share of a good life for their children and themselves. The bustling metros are their capitals, and much of the new cities evidence a kind of affluence unimaginable a few decades ago. It is difficult for even a frequent visitor to keep pace with the change. Take television. The growth in the past few years has been phenomenal. Today, it offers entertainment, news, and sports from around the world through more than 25 channels. Just a decade ago, television in most of India was limited to one determinedly staid government-controlled channel.
And now other news in Asia. That's Scythian, that's the first right hand. It's two more coming up.
The new India is beginning to edge out into the old India as well. The countryside around the big metros is experiencing an old-fashioned land rush. Across what were fields of wheat and mustard for countless generations, farmhouses have cropped up, reflecting a new lifestyle. For all its newfound modernism, India remains steeped in religion. The sounds of the new and modern India still blend into the pious ringing of temple bells along the banks of the Ganges. And almost surrealistically, time seems to stand still. The overwhelming majority of India's nearly 1 billion people are Hindus, but the country is home to over 120 million Muslims, the second largest Muslim population in the world. 20 million Christians, more than the population of many European countries. 18 million Sikhs, 7.5 million Buddhists, 4 million Jains, and countless adherents of other faiths. In crowded, anonymous cities, people determined to make new lives for themselves in this strange new urban world go about their business. Modern, self-contained housing complexes are what middle managers today call home. Entrepreneurship had never died and continues to prosper, seeking new opportunities. While traditionally Indian women have been associated with household and agricultural chores, the past few decades have seen them contribute actively to the growth of the economy, be it in the service sector, science and technology, industry, the arts, or high fashion. In the recent past, some of them have achieved great honours for the country. Kalpana Chawla became the first woman of Indian origin to go into space. Arundhati Roy was awarded the prestigious Booker Prize for Literature. And Diana Hayden was crowned Miss World. In the India of 50 years ago, when self-sufficiency was the official order of the day, when India was determined to go it alone, imported goods were viewed as frivolous luxuries and rendered out of reach by exorbitant duties. Real wealth was limited to a few big-time industrialists who kept their good fortune to themselves and to members of old princely families. Change is inevitable, and change she did to keep pace with an evolving world. Today's India is plugged into the world economy. Virtually anything from French perfume to American basketball sneakers is now available at the glass-fronted local department stores. Every evening, hundreds of young men and women haunt the shopping centres and fast food restaurants. The sounds of canned explosions pour out of the doors of packed discotheques and game parlours. On the roads, it is no longer unusual to see the best of American, European, Japanese and other international cars. And many of them are now made in India. Some are being exported to other parts of the world as well. The only visible reminder that this is still India is the bullock cart, which has also been overtaken by the wheels of change. It's not a distant dream when the Made in India label will be available in supermarkets around the world, as she manufactures diverse products, from safety pins to automobiles to space launch vehicles. The journey has just begun, and the road ahead is not easy. Two Indias live and grow in tandem.
Grant us the vision of our country. Grant us the vision of our country. Fair as she might be. Fair as she might be. A land of justice. A land of justice. Where no one shall prey on others.
Modern India has still not lost contact with the old India, where Maharajas still entertain their guests. Their guests are tourists from around the world in search of old India, where memories of the past loom large, reflecting the passions of a bygone era. In history's shadow, India lives, alive to the needs of tomorrow's children, to the dreams of a prosperous India.